everybody, welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. So today we're going to talk about The Thing from 1982, John Carpenter film. Excellent, excellent movie and truly incredible. So of course the film is made by John Carpenter. He made all kinds of incredible movies. He's really influenced the horror genre, certainly more than anyone in the 80s, I would say. I think he's right up there with Hitchcock, to be perfectly honest with you. He did Halloween, he did Escape from New York, They Live, Big Trouble in Little China, Dark Star, all kinds of excellent, crazy films. And this is probably the first film that he had real support from the studio. A lot of his work is really low budget stuff, but that's not the case for The Thing. He actually got a lot of really big names to be a part of this production. The guy who did the map paintings for the film, for instance, did a bunch of work with Alfred Hitchcock. The person who did all the special effects, the in-camera special effects work, came from The Howling, right? The guy's a genius. I mean, the effects in this are incredible. They're all in-camera effects. They didn't use computers for them, which is really amazing. Of course, it's not amazing for the time because at the time the computers weren't great for it, but the effects are incredible, truly incredible, and they still stand up today. I watched this on the 4K disc and it's stunning. It looks so good. They tried to do a whole sequence where they were going to do stop motion effects. Unfortunately, that sort of sticks out a little bit when you've got all the puppetry work and stuff that's going on. So that scene got largely cut out. There's still tentacles that break out of the floor that are stop motion, and you can really tell that they're stop motion. It really does stick out. Unfortunately, cutting that was probably the best idea. I'm not going to go into specific names of people that worked on the film because there's so many people with such amazing resumes. If it's something that you do want to look into, you absolutely should, because he got an all-star cast and an all-star crew, honestly. Everyone that worked on this project was top-notch. And it's interesting to me when a director reaches the point that a studio or Hollywood acknowledges them and says, clearly it's okay for us to invest money in this project because you've already proven yourself 2 or 3 times in the past. Of course, it's probably what happened to Spielberg after he did Duel. He did a bunch of TV work, did Duel, and then finally they're like, okay, we're going to give you a film, you know? And I believe that John Carpenter had reached that point by the time he was doing The Thing. And I believe that The Thing proved that he was worthy of that. The Thing, it's quite possibly the best film he ever made, to be perfectly honest. It's so good. It didn't do incredibly well. We already talked about 1982 and the amount of films that came out in 1982, all the competition that all the movies had. The list is insane. So there was a lot of competition, and honestly, the film, I would say, was ahead of its time in the sense that it really was embracing the idea of this kind of cosmic horror and paranoia, as opposed to the kind of shock stuff that the 80s were really ramping up for by 1982. Also, it's not a positive film, it's a very down, negative film, and we also talked about how coming out of the 70s, people really wanted to go to the cinema to escape. They wanted to view a positive world, and that, I think, also affected the bottom line for this movie because it's so dark. For the cast, star-studded cast, bunch of brilliant performances, honestly, brilliant performances. And of course, Kurt Russell's there. I do want to talk about Kurt Russell for just a minute because I think he's very, very underrated as an actor. The thing that really tipped me off to him, because I love all these John Carpenter films, of course, and so I love Kurt Russell. But we went and saw that dumb Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez double feature film. I can't remember the Robert Rodriguez title, but I think Quentin's is called Death Proof. And Kurt Russell's in that, and he gets shot. And there's a part where he's the bad guy, so he can't go to the hospital. So he has to take the bullet out himself, which is in every action movie, right? There's always a scene where the hero has to stitch himself up or whatever. But in this scene, he's in the front seat of his car and he's trying to get this bullet out of his arm, and they play it so realistically. It's almost funny. It's done so well, and Quentin is a genius. I mean, there is. I feel like the true genius of Quentin Tarantino is his ability to talk to actors, to get out of the actor exactly what is needed at that point for the movie. It's incredible the performances he gets, and all the actors are good, right? I'm not saying, but you got to have. It's like a big trio. You've got to have a great actor, a great director, and a great script. If you have all three of those pieces and they all work together, you're going to get something incredible. Because the actor can't see it, the director can see it, but can't do it. The director can't show it to the actor. The actor's the only one that can do it, right? And the script has to be there to give the actor all the clues that the actor needs and all the clues that the director needs. It all has to work together. And I feel like with Quentin Tarantino, more often than not, it does always work together, which is truly incredible. I think he's an amazing director. So Kurt Russell's trying to get the bullet out, and he's in a huge amount of pain, and he's in shock, and he's angry, and it's just the funniest, craziest, coolest thing I've seen in years. And Kurt Russell's a massive part of that. And I wish we could see more Kurt Russell, although he does a lot, of course. I'm sure he's doing just fine, but I think he's underrated. I think he's an incredible actor. And the whole cast in this is incredible. Absolutely top notch group of people working on this film. I think the really amazing thing about this movie is the fact that it is cosmic horror, straight up. And I'm very thankful that we now kind of use the term cosmic horror on a regular basis. I'm sure it's because H.P. Lovecraft's stuff went into the public domain a few years back. So all of a sudden we started getting all these H.P. Lovecraft board games and card games and video games, right? And we start seeing H.P. Lovecraft movies because all of a sudden you don't have to pay for the rights. So it's cheaper to do an H.P. Lovecraft thing than it is to say a Stephen King thing. So we see a lot of him all of a sudden. We play a game called Arkham Horror. It's a living card game, super fun. If you're looking for a very fun game night for a group of people that are really into games and are willing to take the time to learn a complicated game, it's 100% worth it. It's an excellent game. So I'm very thankful that that term has become very common, because now it's very easy for me to say, if you haven't seen the thing or you haven't seen it for a long time, when you go in to watch it again, understand that you're not going to see Halloween. You're not going to see Big Trouble in Little China or Dark Star. This is cosmic horror. This is the thing, or this is the thing, or this crazy dog, right? Moving through the hallways in this very terrifying, unlike dog way, right? I was watching some of the extras on it. They were talking about the dog specifically, that it's a half wolf, half dog. So it has a lot of wolf tendencies. It doesn't bark or anything like that. It acts like a wolf. And I think that that's part of the reason they got such an amazing performance out of this dog. The dog is terrifying in this movie. So this is not your typical John Carpenter film. It's not a typical 80s film at all. That this is probably one of the greatest cosmic horror films ever made. You can walk in knowing that there's not going to be a lot of jump scares or slashers running around with knives, right? It's about a brooding darkness. It's about the unknown and not being able to trust anything. And I think that really puts it ahead of its time. And it, if you're in the mood for that, it really shines as one of the greatest examples of a cosmic horror film that there is. And I really believe that it's lasted too. I mean, clearly it's on everybody's top 10 for horror movies, of course. And people still talk about it, right? If you just type in, the thing 1982 into YouTube, there's going to be 100 videos, people debating about who's a thing at the end and who isn't a thing at the end, and the conversation can go on because the film is just that good, and the original story that it's based on is that good, right? Chris did the book review for Who Goes There, and I am amazed at how close the film follows that original story. Because, of course, there's a 1951 version based on that story, which is called The Thing from Another World, I think. And they follow the story kind of, right? There is all the stuff about them finding a spaceship in the ice, and they try to melt the ice down to get to the spaceship, but in that process, they end up destroying the entire spaceship. But luckily, they then find an alien body that was apparently thrown from the ship when it crashed. They find the body frozen, and they can dig up that body, take it back to the camp, and they defrost it, and of course it comes to life. And that's about it for the similarities. It starts attacking people, and they totally destroy it, and the world is safe. But this sticks a lot closer. Like, there's tons of plot points all through this that are right out of that story. And that's one thing that John Carpenter talks about in the bonus features. If you want to get this 4K disc, you absolutely should. It's 1,000% worth it. It's incredible. He's talking about how he originally saw The Thing when it came out, and it scared the crap out of him, right? He was like 11 or something when it came out. Totally terrified him. But then later, a few years later, he read the short story, and he thought, wow, this is so much better than what I saw. And that created the need for him to do this film, is to realize that the film version that we had did not capture this story, and he could capture this story. And the great thing about it is that really helped him decide who he would pull in on the crew, specifically the screenwriter, right? They went through all kinds of screenwriters to do this movie, and they finally came upon somebody who said, I want to do it like the original story. And John Carpenter was like, you're it. We're doing this. So that's very cool. Now, there's also a later version. I think it's 2011. So it's a prequel. And it's neat because it's pretty seamless. Like, if you wanted to, you could watch the 2011 version, and literally where it stops, you could just start the thing and it would play straight through, which is pretty fun. It didn't do very well. It has problems. I'm not going to go into it too much because this is really supposed to be focused on John Carpenter's. One of the big complaints that I heard about it, of course, was they used a lot of computer effects instead of using in-camera stuff. Computer now is just cheaper, and it's what the average audience member is used to. And that's a huge deal. I do have to say that, of course, it's very nostalgic and cool for people who are really into film to go see a movie that uses in-camera effects, right? We love to talk about it and to see it and to know who did those effects. But the average audience member, it just looks strange to them. It's like us trying to watch a movie from the 1930s. There are aspects of it, even if you're totally into film, like I am, and a lot of my friends are. You can still be like, wow, things have changed since then. That really stuck out to me. Or, wow, that's a major difference in our society now. We can see why we're pulled out by certain things in older films, and an average audience member may not be able to articulate that, but they still feel the same way, right? They still watch it and go, "This is dumb," or "This is old." You know, they can't say why, but it doesn't matter. They're used to a certain aesthetic, and I do believe that using the computer animation was probably the best choice because it makes sense financially and it makes sense for the current audience, but at the same time, the film didn't do well, but it does match up. So if you're truly in a thing mode and you've read the short story and then you went out and saw the 1951 version and you're just itching for more, grab the 2011, see what you think. You know, might as well. All right, so I want to talk a tiny bit about the cast, the characters in the cast. So these are loners, scientists who would be willing to go live in the North Pole for a year, or the South Pole. I think this takes place in the South Pole. Who would be willing to go live there for a year, knowing that, especially in the winter time down there, there's not going to be any radio communication, probably, and there's definitely not going to be any visitors, right? I mean, once you get snowed in there, you are stuck there and you're on your own. It takes a very specific personality type to put yourself in that position. Same thing with astronauts, right? People who could say, "Yeah, I want to go to Mars." That's a big deal, right? Like that says a lot about your life and about your dedication, and I mean it's a big deal. So there's a very specific type of character that's in this movie, which I think is really perfect for cosmic horror because they're already kind of loners. They already don't trust the people around them, probably, because they're willing to go out and be alone. It might be more comfortable for them to be in that kind of a position rather than just dealing with the day-to-day stuff of life, you know? So I really feel like having that type of character being the only characters in this film, all of them are in that same position, really enhances the paranoia in this movie. There is one part right in the beginning, and I wish this wasn't right in the beginning, that kind of sticks out to me as a tiny problem. It's very John Carpenter, but I feel like it kind of goes against the grain for this movie, and they don't ever go back to it again, which is nice. The film opens with McReady playing chess with the computer, and he's drinking whiskey and playing chess, and he thinks he's won. So he mocks the computer a little bit, and then the computer puts him in checkmate. And he takes his whiskey and he dumps it in the computer to destroy it because he lost the game, which is very Escape from New York, and you know what I mean. It's a very Snake Plissken move, basically, but I don't think it fits McReady. And fortunately, it's right in the beginning and it goes away very fast. So don't let that kind of turn you off as you watch this, because it goes from there to 11 really fast. Okay, let's just do a quick plot synopsis. I'm not going to go every plot point because if you haven't seen it, you need to see it straight up. And if you have already seen it, you don't need to hear me ramble on. It's not a complicated plot, right? Honestly, the real key is just to understand what type of movie you're watching, so that you can just enjoy that without having expectations, right? I can't say the scariest movie ever made, right? Because it's creepy horror. It's cosmic horror. It's not shocking and oh my gosh, you know. I mean, there are weird effects, of course. There are times when you're going to be grossed out, because that's part of cosmic horror, right? There's at least 2 or 3 autopsies in this film. You know, they're pulling out organs and bones are being stretched, and I mean, it's body horror, right? It's a different kind of thing, and hopefully you know that when you walk in, so that you can enjoy it the way it should be enjoyed. Because if you walk in expecting to see Big Trouble in Little China, you're not going to like it, you know, straight up. But it's about a group of scientists working in the Antarctica. It's modern day, which is 1982. It's 1982, and it's winter time. So they have a very hard time communicating with anyone. There's different shacks around their base, right? So each of those shacks is tied to by a rope. And if they let go of that rope while they're walking from one shack to another when it's nighttime or there's a blizzard, if they can't find that rope again, they will die. They will try to find where they are because they won't be able to see, and they'll get lost and they'll freeze to death. It's bad where they are, and they live in that little base. So, these group of scientists are up there. All of a sudden, this helicopter flies up that's shooting at a dog. The helicopter gets destroyed. All the people on it get killed. These are all specific little plot points that you'd see as you watch the movie. They all get killed. The dog lives, so they take the dog in. Of course, the dog is infected by this crazy alien, and it begins to affect the scientists throughout the camp. And everybody gets incredibly paranoid. They don't know who they can trust. And slowly they realize that no matter what happens, the alien cannot escape this camp. Because if the alien escapes, it will take over the entire world. They need to kill it here in this camp. And they can't just let it freeze to death, because they'll all freeze and die. But the alien, what'll happen is a rescue party will come up in 6 months or whatever, when it's summertime. The rescue party will come, and they'll find the alien, and they'll defrost it, and the whole thing will start again. So they know they have to kill it. So they figure out ways to try to kill this alien as it slowly takes over everybody in the camp. It's just excellent. This is a 10 straight up. This is an incredible film. It's one of my favorite. And I'm a huge John Carpenter fan. I would probably say my second favorite from him is probably Prince of Darkness. I really love that film. But of course, Halloween's a great movie, right? Big Trouble in Little China is incredible, right? It's silly, but it's fun. It's really well done. All kinds of excellent films. They Live, brilliant. Jared has showed us before we actually watched They Live. I hadn't seen They Live before, and Jared brought it up, and he really appreciates, of course, the fight scene in the film, which I think is probably the real peak of that movie, because they got those wrestlers to star in the film, and they have this huge fight scene, which is just brilliant, right? Yeah, John Carpenter's incredible, but I think this is probably his best. Truly, truly an amazing movie. So definitely check it out. And thank you so much for watching this. If you like it, hit the like button. If you want to see more, definitely subscribe. We have a ton to choose from. And have a great day.